Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. We are going to be discussing, this time, Solarpunk. Before we do that, we are going to be getting into our announcements and then our shout-outs. So, let's see. We're doing double shout-outs this time. So Levi's going to have one and I'm going to have one. So, this time I'll go first like normal to give you all time to think, and then we will go Dan, Kane, Levi, Scrat. Backwards the last time, maybe? Something like that. I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads. We're trying to get to $100 per month support. Thank you for watching through this particular month, and hopefully you found it educational enough or useful enough to be able to support and get us along that goal. Once we get to $100 a month, the idea is to do, of course, giveaways, but that also allows us to do more stuff here as being able to devote time and effort to these things. Let's see. We're doing that. We should be doing our live streams and stuff as far as creating things, especially since Adventure Academia is firing back up for the fall session. And yeah. Oh, I did playfully say that I would roll some metal dice in a glass bowl for Levi for his listening pleasure, should we get to $200 a month before I do that. I did not specify if he had to listen to it, so there you go. All I can do is present him with the audio.
It's like handing someone a hand grenade and being like, enjoy.
Alright. But that's what I've got. So, what's up, Dan?
Hello, everybody. Dan from Avenue Studios. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Of course, during the theme collaborations with the Inn of Planar Crossroads, we will be building a one-shot that we play with our supporters based around the discussions we have here and around the Hearth. So you can catch us building that on the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the last Thursday of the month, we play it live. If you want to become a part of the ever-growing force known as Avenue Studios, you can enter the raffle as our supporters get in a raffle to see who's chosen to play with us. So we will be doing Everyday Heroes 5th edition for PunkTember. So I'm very excited to see what we build from that. And actually, by this point, we'll have already built it. And in a few days, we'll be playing it. So hope to see you over there in the chat. And yeah, we're going bright and cheery with Solarpunk here. So I'm excited.
Yeah. What you got, Kane?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kane. I'm everybody's favorite Canadian co-host that exists exclusively on this channel.
He only exists on this channel. He doesn't exist anywhere else. He doesn't actually exist in Canada.
When this video ends and you turn off this channel, I stop being real. Keep the dream alive.
Play it on loop forever.
Yeah. Just keep me running in the background while you do dishes or something, please.
There you go.
Groundhog Day is all he's got.
All right. So, aside from keeping Kane alive, that means we're to Levi.
And I am shouting out Swing Ripper. Helps you optimize Pathfinder 2nd Edition for if you have a combat-focused GM and you want to wrestle some baddies.
Yeah.
Wrestler archetype is a lot of fun on a lot of builds. And he is a big proponent of it. Also, a badger in a bikini with a top hat for the loco. He doesn't use that as a little avatar. He does use his own face. But it's there.
So, we're sorry for the disappointment on that one, you know.
Yeah. You know, once he starts VTubing.
There you go.
A bikini-clad, top-hatted beaver.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Probably not the weirdest thing.
There are weirder things on the internet.
There's
Yeah.
probably weirder things on Twitch.
There's probably weirder things, like, on your computer right now. You never know. Stuff. It's crazy.
I don't know your life.
I mean, we're hanging out with a squirrel, leather jacket, and cool glasses.
That's
so.
right.
Oh yeah, speaking of.
Me.
Mm.
Alright. Well, it's me, Scrat from A Squirrel Plays. I'm over on YouTube. Most of my content is about TTRPGs, or at least of late. And whether that's sharing some experiences and tidbits I've learned along the way. It might also be reviewing some of the games I've played. Been trying to spread my wings and get into more of the smaller ones, easier rules light kind of things. And sometimes we share creations that the community has made. I also like to dip off into world building and character design from a writing perspective. And once in a great while, I get to also chat about video games. So basically, still trying to figure out what to do with my YouTube life. And that's me, lost and confused.
He's dazed and confused.
Good company.
Dazed and confused.
God, aren't we all?
Usually by this point in the night.
Maybe someday he'll know what he wants to do when he grows up into a full-grown squirrel. One day. All right. Well, that means we're to our, not our bonus one, that was earlier. We're to our official Levi Spotlight, which we were doing this month, which is Balsa Table Tales. So they are at 379 subs right now, as far as I know.
Should be 380 now.
Oh, let me refresh. Let me see. 380. Yep. So he does descriptions of, kind of like synoptic descriptions of what happens in his RPG sessions for Call of Cthulhu, and you can check those out. Also does a few tips for the new keeper or the old keeper that wants some tips. So there you go. That's him. Let's get him up to 400 if we can. And Swing Ripper, let's see if we can get them to 11 if we can. 11K. That would be cool. I
thought you just meant 11.
No. I'll shout out someone.
Wow, we found a real small channel, didn't we?
Yeah. But go ahead and do that. You can send them a...
Do you mean 11K as in like 11 times the current size, or 1.1K?
I mean,
11K
Sure.
Great.
Let's we can get them to 11K, sure.
Yeah, man, shoot for the stars.
There you go.
It's true. Okay, just checking the math.
It's the last chat of the night. We're gonna go for broke. So
do it.
All right. So that's what we've got as far as our shout-outs. And since we're done with announcements, and since we're done with shout-outs, that means it's time to grab your preferred beverage, pull up a chair around the hearth, and join us as we discuss Solarpunk. So, scroll on. This one was not one I had heard of, and I've heard of several things, so I was interested.
But only several. I've heard of several.
Several things. Multiples of several things, we'll say.
More than 2, less than 5.
Yes. I've heard of several things over and over again. Sometimes they're different. But as far as Solarpunk, just getting some ideas and around, it seems to be very much... Now, I'm willing to be convinced differently, but it seems basically like ecopunk. And that's kind of what I'm getting from it. It's very much about decentralization as far as where your power comes from, where your resources come from. It's about ecological awareness in design and in society buildup and long-term lasting designs. And something that comes to mind with it is the agritexture that is starting to that futurist thinkers like to use, as far as if we in the future need to colonize a place or go somewhere and we have to have this architecture serve several purposes, including agricultural services, you build that in, you make that part of the design of this particular building or of these particular pod buildings or things like that, as far as a far future version. But it seems if cyberpunk is high-tech, low-life, solar/ecopunk, I guess, is like a conservationist-style high-punk high-life? I guess?
Yeah, it is essentially like high. It is conversely where cyberpunk is sort of dystopian. Solarpunk is intended to be sort of utopian. Like post-corporation, post sort of like centralized industrialization. Like you're absolutely correct in saying that Solarpunk is like it's about like decentralization and green architecture and making sure that everything that is produced is made sustainably. It's very. I was gonna complain initially about just throwing punk onto things that weren't the weren't punk things that we were talking about when you called it ecopunk, but that's you're correct. That is what it is. It's like a heavy focus on stuff like independence, generativity, ingenuity, handcrafted. Like, to go back to, like, sort of the DIY ethic we were talking about earlier with stuff like steampunk, like, that features very, very heavily in things like Solarpunk, where there's basically an almost complete absence of factory architecture. And you'd have, like you were talking about, the agritexture, like, buildings partially sunk into the earth with green roofs that can sustain crops. Things like that. A lot of the aesthetic would revolve around like wind, solar, thermo. What is that? What do they call? It's thermal power, but it's like where they sink elements into geothermal power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Nausicaa has come up when I've searched it.
Yes,
too.
Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind is
where she
excellent.
lives. Yeah,
That's like a post-apocalyptic Solarpunk.
right.
So,
Because here's my, I like the aesthetic and stuff and the idea. My problem with the punk part is if you're gonna be because I think what I'm seeing here is Solarpunk. They're putting the punk on there because they're going against like the trend towards cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
So in the game, how would you do the punk? Because like on the other ones we've talked about, you're going against the main thing, which seems like, so are you trying to destroy the eco-friendly?
Well, maybe the punk is not in a direct opposition to a system that is in power, but in opposition to a system trying to gain power.
Right, which I guess kind of Nausicaa kind of hits on that. Would be probably a good.
well,
It's almost like the writers of Solarpunk were more punk than the setting itself.
That's what I'm kind of getting the vibe on. Yeah.
What I saw here, it says Solarpunk represents solar energy as a renewable energy source and an optimistic vision of the future that rejects climate doomerism.
yeah.
Which is a fantastic word.
Doomerism? Yeah.
Logging that one away.
New one for
Yeah.
me. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
I
mean,
expected a lot more solar panels when I was looking stuff up, but it's the vibe I was getting, it's a kind of a fusion with what's
Well, that's why
I think
what's already there.
The punk would be that direct, like that hopeful opposition of like the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me wonder, like, what's the typical? So like in Cyberpunk, your typical bad guys, corporation. So who's the typical threat in Solarpunk?
Irresponsible campers.
I mean, I feel like easiest if we tie into some of that post-apocalyptic-y vibes, old world things spewing back up that have like the risk of destroying the almost utopic situation you've made.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay.
Well, there's also. Go ahead.
Well, to build off of what Levi said, here's how one way to do it in a game. So say that it is post-apocalyptic like Nausicaa, But there was enough knowledge maintained that they decided not to make the mistakes of their ancestors, and they went and built sustainably. And it was rough at first, it was hard, but they paid the price up front, and now they have this sustainable life. But the old world, like Levi is talking about, the old world tech had subterranean factories, and now they've built up enough robots through those type of work. Maybe the factory, it's not even fully, it's not like a self-aware AI or anything. It's just like these robots are starting to pour out of these old places, these old subterranean places. So they don't go into the caves, not because there are monsters there, but there are robots there that they call monsters. And now you have this almost, what is it? Horizon Zero Dawn type of situation, but much better, much more hopeful.
Oh yeah, with like the AIs constructing like animals and stuff out of.
That's interesting.
Yeah, just like.
I also like the idea of like that. Yeah, like that sort of thing where maybe like the central AI has gone through some sort of rampancy, maybe, where it's what it was originally programmed to do has sort of been manipulated or changed, or it's just gotten old.
Yeah, computers do that.
They do get old. But I think like also there's definitely an element in Solarpunk of the sort of you mentioned it briefly of like almost a building back from zero facet to it, where like you're like you said, like you've lost it all and you were tried to build back sustainably and it was very difficult, but you were making serious headway, and like now you're encountering this opposition that is just, it's a holdover from the way things were previously, and like maybe it's pseudo benign, like all of these robots pouring out of factories that they've just been chunking out these automatons for however long, just unsupervised in a factory underground somewhere. Or it could be like a group of people trying to like again make use of these old world technologies to just gain power for themselves.
Well, see, if you were doing like a full campaign, you could do it where, so these bots are starting to come out, and now you have a decision that has to be made between the different places that have been living sustainably, but these present a massive advantage for one community or another community. And do they choose to continue to live sustainably, or does one... This is highly decentralized in this setting, so you would have just this one village making the bad decision to try and use the tech could cause a cascade event to that. Them wanting to do that, they then start merging that tech in with their new sustainable stuff, that then the machines recognize, well, this is an energy source now. They start building into that, and they're trying to... You have this balance that's being upset. And so now you can play into that. Maybe the group has to face that as one of their early adventures and having to deal with that. And then they have to go deep down into the depths of the caves to find the equivalent of Paperclip factory down there and destroy the monstrous machine brain that keeps making all these things. And that could be a way to do it.
If this was a setting with magic in it, it would give me big Fern Gully vibes.
But if you did, then someone would have to sing Toxic Love at some point.
Yes, someone would have to be the crude oil elemental, the diesel elemental. You see a lot of these themes and stuff like I want to say like Okami, almost. There's a Solarpunk game called Terra Nil that's very... It's very simple game, but it's pretty much all about building back from zero. Like you're dropped into an environment that has just like it's been devastated by a forest fire or just random pollution or like that they've lost all of the bees, so nothing's been pollinated. So just the acres and acres and acres of land have just died off, and you enter the environment with the task literally of just like building a functioning environment out of what is effectively just burned, salted land.
You leave when you're done, right? Isn't that how it works? And
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
That's fun.
For tabletops, it's also Numenera, which I'm a big fan of.
I was seeing that, yeah.
Numenera is
another
Solarpunk?
example one.
Well, it's like Great Reset sort of thing. Like we had modern technology, and then everything just sort of got catawampus.
Okay. So it's a system to run a Solarpunk type of game in?
Yeah, I would say so.
Gotcha.
So a setting/system that is more explicitly Solarpunk is Coyote and Crow, one I shouted out a while back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have. I've absolutely heard of that.
Yeah. They also talk about themselves as being in Digipunk, because it is very much so like the Americas never got colonized.
Okay,
You're hurting Adam.
Yeah.
But carry on.
Basically, it's alternate history, but some like sci-fi handwave for some of the tech. Like Jutsu technology is basically kind of anti-grav floating stuff. It's a specific word. Anyway. I will definitely say it is more like, I will say that the writers were more punk than the setting is, because it is a pretty generally functioning society.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, it's like, oh, normal political struggles, and that are more commonly your threats, though there is some kind of magical things in the adventure included in the core book. But,
I mean, yeah, from what I heard of it, it still sounded super interesting.
yeah, it's neat. Power-wise, it's like solar panels, and you set things in rivers to generate power for your place.
Although, when you said in Digipunk, I heard just Digipunk, and I just thought you were talking about Digimon for like 3 seconds.
That's fair.
Hey, we
Also fun.
almost talked about Cyberpunk, and at least one of the Digimon seasons is Cyberpunk, so we'll have to cover that some other time, I guess.
Tune in next time for the Digimon episode.
I wish. Man, next time's not Digimon.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Oh yeah, your kids watch a lot of Digimon, don't they?
Yeah, we watched all the seasons through Frontier, at least. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Did we watch 5? No, I stopped at Sabers. When you got a human punching Digimon in the face, I'm like, nope, I'm good.
3's the best.
Makes sense that you like
I'll
3,
fight
considering it's the Cyberpunk one. Anyway. Something we do seem to be running into a couple times, running up against, is that sometimes people are more punk than the things they end up making. So, when you see punk at the end of stuff, I guess that should have been in the what's punk thing, is... well, this can be our comment. People are more punk than what they made, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Keeps tuned in. I'm not sure I like that one.
Yeah, so the distinction I will make is that the making of it was punk, rather than the people existing in it being punks.
Well, I mean...
Right. Because they were envisioning an alternate, like, against the existing system version of the world, and that act was punk, but then they made a good world in which most people are not going to be, like, the hopeful punks It's like writing it was
cool
more
punk.
punk. Well, because like there's the dystopic
Yes.
punks of like diesel punk and potentially atom punk, and then there's the more attempted utopic punks. Right? We were talking about some versions of Tesla punk. It's just like you have to find something else for people to fight over because the world got pretty good.
Yeah, I think in the TTRPG space, maybe less so the literature space, but definitely in the TTRPG space, like, but generating conflict is not that hard. Especially if magic is a thing. It's just, here's a dragon, or here's a dude made of diesel fuel who sings, or like, you can figure it out, man. Like, it's not that hard. People are bad, sort of. Sometimes, by and large, people kind of suck.
So
Like,
when you
it's-
start making characters and world elements and stuff, the conflict just makes itself.
Yeah.
I don't think you can not make it once you start getting into that.
Even if you have a setting that is like, hopefully utopic, like it aspires to be utopic, you're inevitably going to run into stuff writing anything about that's just like, this is bad, it's screwing up everybody's day, we got to do something about it. And especially in the TTRPG space, like, usually that is a problem that you might be able to solve by punching it in the face. That's been my experience with TTRPGs. There are very few problems I cannot solve with a knuckle sandwich.
Yeah. Because knuckle sandwiches are very fun to serve.
They're full of calories.
They've got killer calories.
Hey. Alright, I got it.
Uh-huh.
There it is.
Well, listening, because I wasn't super familiar with this one, so listening to y'all talk, I do see how we can use this in games. I think there's another system that could be used that actually works really well. It's Ryutama. It is Ryutama. And it is a Japanese one that... It has an English translation for those wanting to get it. But it's a Japanese one, and they say it's like Studio Ghibli meets Oregon Trail. So it's a hopeful Oregon Trail type of thing. But I could see how you would actually take that and turn it into a Solarpunk type of thing. The idea is that there are dragons. So the literal name is Dragon Egg. So you have dragons that collect stories. That's how they grow and mature. And so you have this little avatar that the GM actually plays as a character in there, as well as the other characters. And in this society of these kind of, again, decentralized type of things, it's in a fantasy setting usually, and you go on your adventure, and you have different things happen to you. You have different dice mechanics for the weather and how you're dealing with it, and you have a stat for topography for navigating and stuff like that, and different classes have different abilities that they work with, and you do that, but it's all very much in this idea where you can tell a little bit of a darker story, but most of it's like growth or adventure or the working through of some kind of emotional thing for the players, for the characters. And it seems to fit pretty well with this idea, and all you would do is change the bad guys to like the robots we mentioned before, or maybe they're just with it being so utopic, there's just a bunch of megafauna. Then you have to deal with that megafauna or something like that. And so you can deal with those different challenges in there. And it has the mechanics to do that in a very, like I said, Studio Ghibli meets Oregon Trail type of way.
Yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah. I'd say another thought that crossed my mind was, we talk about that, like, period of time of, like, people building up the sustainable society, and you could run that as kind of a city builder survival hybrid, like, having to go out and find the different things that they can, like, turn into solar panels, or turn into mills. River mills? Water wheels. That's the word I wanted.
There you go.
For, like, building up that style of thing. It's just like, hey, this is a harsh, kind of leftover world, and you're either some of the first, or, like, midway in the process of building up a sustainable society.
Something fun I think you could do aesthetically is say that the tech is... Maybe there wasn't this big apocalypse. Maybe they just decided that they're going to shift around. The design of the tech, like motherboards, are interesting to look at. Well, what if you had to... You got to get rid of that somehow. So maybe you take those things off there. This could be a fun thing to do if you have really kind of crafty players. Maybe they like to do miniatures or something like that. Maybe the bots that are coming out are just treated like a natural resource now. And they get the bots, and those bots have parts and machine and stuff like that on them, and they are what basically end up feeding out and supplying those parts that you need to maintain the other things you already have. So instead of making new tech that you might pollute the surface, you have these factories underground that they haven't turned off or anything because maybe they don't know how or something like that. So instead of going all, again, doomer about it, they instead are like, well, you know what? We can at least reuse their stuff and recycle their stuff. So they hunt the bots, and this would be a very Ryutama thing to do. They hunt the bots to then use all the parts to maintain their machinery, to repair their solar panels, to all of those things, and then they take the broken parts and turn them into art or different things along that line. So you have that option there to make a different kind of game. A very, again, getting back to the hopeful side of it, that hopeful type of game.
That's cool. I like that.
You're muted still, Kane.
Dang it! I think that could be an interesting plot hook if, like, you've been out here murking T-1000s for the last couple months for spare parts, and then they just stop showing up.
Oh.
So, like, what do you do then? Like, do you go into the murder cave to try and restart the robot production factory, or what do you do?
Yeah, that's good.
Alright, we're getting pretty close to time. So, how's about some final thoughts, gents, on our final chat for PunkTember?
Yeah.
Alright, let's see. How's about we do Dan, Levi, Scrat, and then Kane. And then I'll finish us out.
Okie dokie.
What you got, Dan?
Oh boy. I love the ideas you guys are putting out. It definitely seems like Solarpunk, you need to think about the... What do I want to say? The antagonist, I guess. Which doesn't necessarily have to be an actual antagonist, but because I like the idea of, like, the world, the hex crawl sort of thing could work. Well, heck, you could take, I know I kind of did this in a YouTube short today, but you could take the Pathfinder Kingmaker series and, like, redo it as Solarpunk. Like, you're going in to restart the world in a new way. So I know we made the joke about people being more punk than the punk. I'm still not sure. To me, this falls in punk, but I love hopeful, positive, heroic, and this fits really well. And I love Nazca too, which still, I think if I ran this, I would probably do something like that, because she still is kind of a punk, in a way. She wants to stop this war that's going on. She sees something in the land more and, sacrifices herself for it, effectively. So I think that's a really good inspiration for this, that you're looking for that hopeful, really flippin' cyberpunk on its head, which could be fun. So for me, it would be an interesting challenge. I'm curious, as always, if any of you watching have done Solarpunk before, and how have you run it and played with this aesthetic and story style. I'm really interested. So that's my thought.
Okay. Yeah, I do think that one of the main things that was going through my head is that, it is nice to have a place where, the assumed vibe is wholesome. Because, I do like my gritty games, I like my gritty settings. I watched and enjoyed Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Was very sad at the end, but that was the point. But I also have my comfort shows, and I could definitely see, especially if you've specifically been in a grittier setting for a bit, taking, a wholesome break. And, just going through and making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good, wholesome group vibe. Also is
Nice.
one of those things that could be a good intro point for, kids.
Mhm.
Making a less otherwise spooky, your threats are, either aren't people or your solution is not murder.
Yep.
Right? Maybe it's other groups, and maybe you, spar or do something else, and there are, rules for when a fight's over, and it's alright, we settled it by combat, I won, spar with you next week.
That's interesting. I could make an argument Pokemon setting is kind of Solarpunk in a way.
Well, I was just
Pokepunk.
thinking, Pokepunk. Yeah, it's right up there with Digipunk.
Yeah.
Digipunk is better.
Well, debatable. It almost kind of makes me think of Jugger, the fictional sport Jugger.
I don't know if I know that one.
It's from a movie, literally called, I think, Blood of the Jugger. It was a post-apocalyptic setting in the film where, Jugger is the only sport that sort of exists anymore. It's played with a dog skull and chains.
I don't know if that qualifies as Solarpunk. I mean, they're recycling
No,
with a dog's skull and the chains.
It definitely doesn't, but we were just talking about, or Levi was just talking about, how do you settle disputes without, necessarily lethal violence. And I was like, well, sports are just ritualized warfare, so why
That's
not
true.
that?
If you want to go with the more fantasy one, Siege Ball was one made for D&D. By fans.
Okay.
Yeah, you literally smack a ball into a tower of stones, and the other team is blocking it, and instead of a goal, there is a tower that you have to break by batting a ball at it.
But yeah, in the theme, so your marshals have something to do in your Solarpunk game. A sport.
Yep.
Preferably a sort of violent one. Not deadly.
No,
But sort of violent.
Yeah. With, political stakes on the line.
that could be a good way to have a heroic sort of play too. In that, the politics is dealt through. That's an optimistic way of we could actually solve everything through sports.
I mean,
it's
if you're an incredibly wealthy, famous sports star, you could. It wouldn't be that much of a stretch to say that you have some sort of political sway,
Absolutely.
especially in a super decentralized setting. You're not dealing with
and the assumption is you don't have enough living people to risk settling disputes through killing each other. You don't have the resources for that sort of thing to be viable. You're doing your best to live sustainably, but if we're assuming this kind of post-otherwise apocalyptic world, It could have been something that came down from the fact, like, no, we still need people. Like, we need to get frustration out. We need to make decisions when, like, discussions and bargaining doesn't work. But, like, we can't afford actual war. There's just not enough people.
I like that. That's fun. Also, side note, people play Joker for real now, apparently.
Yeah, they do. There are leagues.
Love it.
It's dope as hell.
I really like that idea. A Mighty Ducks game. The loser team from the smallest village.
Honestly, great game.
Yeah.
Like, just make a fun-to-play, fantasy-ish, sci-fi-ish, however you want to go about that game. Like, maybe include an animal that no one is allowed to bump into or hit with the ball, just, like, grazing through the field as part of the obstacle.
Don't tip the cow.
Well, like,
that feels like less of a rule and more of like the only field we had was Farmer Dan's, and this steer will not win.
Maybe, but I mean, I don't know.
I like
it. There are fun ways to make it more whimsical with that, and kind of throw in that like kind of hippie, nature-loving vibes into the sport.
We're gonna beat each other up and then sing Kumbaya.
Unironically, though, like, you beat each other up, and then you do the thing at the end of the sports where you all shake hands, and then you sing Kumbaya.
We share our microbrews with each other. That's
over campfires.
100%.
Yeah.
Very happy and hoppy.
And it also means that, like, you can have reoccurring quote-unquote villains, and you don't have to make a ton of other ones. You just make a couple interesting ones that they meet and interact with, and you get to keep using them.
Oh, I wanted to mention this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just saying good rivals.
I wanted to, on the idea of rival sports teams that you see more than once. I wanted to mention this in an earlier talk. The video game Pyre by Supergiant Games, which I've heard described to me as Purgatory NBA Superstars. But it definitely has like it's dystopian. It doesn't fit into the vibe of Solarpunk. But like I said, I wanted to mention this earlier. It's like but it does, like, you solve your problems non-violently through like a sports tournament. But the dystopian aspect is that like reading is illegal, and you got caught with a library, so they like threw you off of a cliff into the nowhere land where all of the exiles are.
Well,
and
it seems like
the only way to get back is to win the Purgatory NBA tournament.
Well, it seems like those would be the most well-educated exiles, and they wouldn't really want to go
seems
back.
like a terrible idea, right? Like, put all of the people who can read in one place.
Make them play basketball.
There's clearly some like weird magic garbage going on, right? So, like, why would you put all of the people capable of writing down and reading spells in one place? Why would you exile them together? Like, that's a bad idea.
That's a recipe for a hostile takeover.
None of them have read in so long they don't realize it's a bad idea.
There you go.
I'm just saying, throw that into your campaign as an antagonist. Your culture has been just throwing out people who can read for the last 300 years, and suddenly just an army of angry mage children are here to stomp your shit.
Bunch of homeschoolers.
Siege
and I'm a homeschooler, so I can say it. Yeah.
Yep. Well, us homeschoolers will take over the world.
Yeah, eventually.
All right, what you got, Scrap? We're supposed to be doing final thoughts here.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got a couple things here. Let's see. So, first one is I am one of those guys, I guess, the type of writer/creator, whenever he makes something, especially characters, I like to break them. And, you work real hard on them, and you're like, this is a great character. I'm going to kill him.
Let's
so, but So when I see all these Solarpunk images that I've been looking up, I'm like, oh, that's a cool world.
He's completely
How can I run it
dissatisfied
for everybody.
Yeah.
So, and I'm saying, the first thing that comes to mind, and I think this is our current situation in reality, definitely fact check me, but like, while solar panels we can make and work to an extent, they are extremely toxic to the environment to actually make and produce, I think. Could be wrong. So that's the easy solution for a bad guy, not the most exciting, but there could be some corporate shenanigans going on there, like everybody's under the impression that the world has gotten better and is great, but it's actually still falling apart. Not the
Needville?
most... Hmm?
Needville?
Needville?
I'm trying to remember. It's from the Lorax movie.
Oh, the Thneed.
Thneedville.
No, it kind of makes me think of the Jetsons and the Fifth Element, where like everybody lives up super, super high, where the air is still clean.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
So, that wouldn't make for a good, very exciting TTRPG, I don't think. So, on that note, I guess if I was running a game, what I would do is kind of going with either y'all's idea of robots suddenly coming out or something, but I think I would lean more towards a group of people, you just call them rebels or whatever, that are digging up old technology. It could be like whatever you want, World War II stuff if you want, but the idea I would think here is they're digging up and using really old, clunky, super durable stuff. So, and then all the futuristic Solarpunk stuff is really fragile in comparison. So, like, fighting against, while there's not many of them, it would be really, really hard to do because you can't stand up to those old burly tanks, that are rusting and still going 200 years later. But I feel like a good, reveal or turnaround point is you eventually find out that those guys that were digging up the old tech and fighting back were kind of sort of in the right. You realized you could go back to the whole, hey, it's super toxic to make these solar panels. They're like, we need a hardy mixture of the two technologies, not all one or the other. You get to the end and then you have to make that choice. And then, your players hate you as a GM because they didn't want that kind of burden.
and then all the players and characters come together. All the characters come together and sing "Kumbaya" with each other at the end.
There you go.
Yeah, happy and happy.
I don't know. I like the Solarpunk concept. It seems pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like your idea too that it could still be hopeful and that there is a solution here. Can the players bring everyone around to it? They're the hope. So it can still be dark and hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing like the BBG dying and you find out he was right in the last couple of seconds.
The players always love it when the bad guy was right the whole time.
Yeah, that's super gratifying. It really enhances my play experience.
All right, King, what you got?
I love Solarpunk. To be fair, I was the one who suggested it, so I'm a little biased. But I'm glad that everybody else has enjoyed it thus far. I'm a super big fan of the aesthetic and just like the sort of social idea around it, and I think that making an antagonist or just conflict or some inciting action in it would actually be very easy, because when you start up here, you got a long way to fall. Bad stuff can just start happening and continue to. You can just have a cascading failure of garbage. Maybe even literal garbage. What did we do with all the trash?
There you go.
Well, there are ways to handle trash better than we do today. But
But did we go back and dig up all those American landfills? No, I don't think so.
I was going to say the Futurama, we shot it into space and now we're just back. Yeah. It's going to crash land on the planet.
Well, technically, if you shot it into space, the sun would just eat it. So,
if you shot it into the sun,
well, even I don't know. It depends on its mass, I guess.
Well, and how fast you shoot it out. think
I'm
most
thinking
things
too hard about
just
it.
go-
If you
Yeah.
pointed it at the sun, you'd have a much better chance. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anybody a rocket scientist in the chat?
Well, it's the big yellow thing up in the sky. Just
Yeah.
aim at that.
Yeah, it should help.
Get that one. I'm sure you've seen it.
Alright. I guess we're to my final one. I like the aesthetic a lot, because I have a house that's off-grid. Not this house that I'm in right now, this is my parents' house. But the house that is my house, I've got solar panels, I've got wind power on it. So my energy is there. And you don't need a lot when you do it the way I do it. So I get it. I like this Solarpunk idea. I like the idea of agritexture and this decentralization and the ideas of these things. I'm trying to think of a way to keep the punk in it. Because the solar I got, but the punk, how would I do that? So if I was to try and run it in my game and keep the punk in it, why does Solar and Cyber not cooperate here against the big corpos?
Well, I think the cyber, when you're playing in the cyber, typically you are against the corpos.
Well,
you're
a lot
like,
of times
you're usually like a criminal, right? You're like an edge runner or something.
Yeah, but that's assuming that the criminals aren't working for the corpos anyway. So, but
True.
what I mean is, because it's like EcoPunk, Solarpunk, because I think EcoPunk is a little bit darker than Solarpunk. It's a little less hopeful, I guess, is what we do. But if you want to take the Solarpunk edge of it, why not have your Cyberpunk characters in the city and your Solarpunk characters out on the fringes of society kind of meet up and be like, you know what? We've got a common baddie here. There's this common enemy we have of these big corps that are building in this dystopian thing, and the only reason the Solarpunks are left alone is because then you have them rebelling against a society, against a societal norm. They're rebelling against using corp stuff. They just refuse to use it and go off and do their own thing. So they are
You could also
punks.
interpersonally in the party. You could theoretically do like a city mouse, field mouse thing.
Yeah, you do like that. Then you'd have a few players from the cyber part, a few players from the solar part, and then they get together and they're like, you hate Asaka? I hate Asaka! We're buds! Right, do we just become best friends? Yup! So, there you go. You can do that. You want to go tear down the Asaka tower? Yup! There you go.
Yeah, I'm going to put my cyberbunk bed on top of your cyberbunk, Fred, and we're going to have so much room for civil disobedience.
There you go. So that's how I would do it and keep the punk aspect of it. Is, like Kane said, do the city mouse, field mouse thing, where there's a common enemy. And if the Night City folks want to, after the corpse are taken down, redistributed, decentralized, and dispersed, if they want to do their own thing in the cities, they can, and then the Solarpunks can do their own thing in the country. Because they both work together, you can have this hopeful ending. And it doesn't have to be high... it's basically mixing high-tech low-life and high-tech high-life and having the two work together to have better life, I guess. So, that's how I would do it if I was going to try and keep the punk aspect of the solar punk in it. So. And I think that means we have come to the end of this month's chat. So we hope that you have enjoyed. We hope that now you have a better understanding of what punk is, and of steampunk, and of Tesla punk, and of solar punk. Next time, we will be branching into... Next ones will be PunkTember. So, we were talking about post-apocalyptic stuff here. Now we get to go devote ourselves a little bit to it in October. So, we hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a great day. God bless, and enjoy. Bye.
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 This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, y'all.
Yep, sleep should be had.
Crash.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Us East
I am
Coasters.
approaching 1 a.m.
Oh,
yep.
goodness.
Yep.
Yeah, go to bed.
I should. So,
This was fun, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely.
peace out. Sorry for missing the start.
No worries, you made it.
Glorious entry.
You got 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than expected when I just, I was doing other stuff, and then I'm like, I'm getting a little tired. I should check the time. Oh, I have been sitting here for 3 hours. Noted.
Alright.
Peace. Rest well.
Okay.
You as well, sir.
Later.
Have a good night.
Farewell.